Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever time it is, wherever you are, whoever you are. Welcome once again to Nerd Week Live, the show in which we talk about nerd news that happened over the past week since our last show on our last Tuesday, or on last Tuesday. Not just ours, belongs to everybody. Those days of the week, you know. I'm Rodney Brown. I'm the editor-in-chief of Nerd Caliber, first-person shooter on Facebook as a cosplay photographer, Burley_adopter on Twitter, a couple of other places, doing a bunch of other things. And I'm flying solo tonight, and we don't have an enormous roster, unlike the last literally 3 weeks, where every show was well over an hour with just 2 people. So we should be out of this a little more than a half an hour, I'm going to say. It's big news, some really big news. In fact, some big news that just dropped really recently, like within the last hour. Pardon me. What I thought was a head cold yesterday, which is why we canceled No Nerd Caliber, has turned into apparently just a worse case of my allergies. So bear with me as I cough through this and wipe my eyes and do all those other horrible things that you shouldn't do on camera. But, you know, the show usually must go on. Last night, notwithstanding. So already in the chat, let's see, YouTube Lila, welcome to the show. Sword and the Stoners, welcome to the show. Skinner Snaps, welcome to the show on Twitch. Both of you two. And we got nobody on Facebook yet, but here's hoping. By the way, I mentioned Twitch. Let's talk about Twitch. Why are we going to talk about Twitch? Because we want you to follow us on Twitch. If you have a Twitch account, of course, that is the URL, twitch.tv/nerdcaliber. Pretty much any of our social media or any of our sites on the internet are whatever it is /nerdcaliber. All one word, just like that. Real easy to find us. But if you have a Twitch account, we'd love to have you follow us. We're trying to, kick our Twitch activity up a little bit to get to some other levels of the stuff where Twitch really likes us. They really like us. Or at least we want them to really like us. So, let's get into it. The first topic is, this sadly just dropped today. That's the actor Dean Stockwell playing Al from Quantum Leap, and the news, sadly, is that Dean Stockwell passed away. Age of 85. Natural causes at his home, is according to a rep from the family. And he died early morning, November 7th. Dean Stockwell, known for this role primarily to us nerds. The show Quantum Leap with Scott Bakula, a staple of the 90s. If you haven't seen it, it's worth checking out. He was also Dr. Wellington Yue, a very timely bit of information, in the David Lynch version of Dune, and that's him there. He was also John Cavill, and those are him there. Because, spoiler for a show that's at least 15 years old, pushing 20 at this point, at least from its first episode, John Cavill was number 1. The leader isn't the right term because they kind of didn't have a leader, but, the top dog of the humanoid Cylons in Battlestar Galactica. Was on that show for 3 seasons. So, yeah, that was a 3 if... disappeared there for a second. He did a whole bunch of other stuff, nerdy and not, going all the way back to like this really interesting, kind of satirical, but also a real pedantic movie called The Boy with the Green Hair, which is one of the best anti-war films ever made 3 years after the end of World War II. 1948, and he plays the lead, a boy named Peter. Worth checking out if you've never seen it. It's one of those things that, history, it's a movie for people who are really interested in obscure movie history that kind of doesn't get played anymore because it's really ragingly anti-war. But yeah, so Dean Stockwell has passed. Our condolences to his family, to all the people who worked with him at various points. Every article I've seen, Deadline and others will often do follow-ups of these with remembrances from people who have worked with the person, the famous actor or whoever. And David Lynch, Scott Bakula, they all say he was a joy to work with, and Bakula even said working with him made Bakula a better person. So condolences and rest in power, Mr. Stockwell. All right, moving on to our next bit of news, and again, it's dropped today, really huge. This is, of course, from Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, the first movie. I'm sorry, this is from The Hobbit, because obviously that's Thranduil's sword. Not Thranduil. Thorin Oakenshield's sword. Wow. Been too long since I've seen these movies, folks. Anyway, the reason this is up here is this is an example of the work of Weta Digital. The green screen work, Rivendell behind them, that's all Weta Digital. The color coding of the entire scene is all Weta Digital. All of the orc armies, the giant cities, all of that is the work of Weta Digital. A company out of New Zealand that is partially owned by Peter Jackson. The news is that the game development company Unity has bought part of Weta Digital, or I guess technically what will now be called Weta Digital, for $1.625 billion. And the reason I say part of, because Weta Digital includes the engineers who develop the tools, the software tools, and even the physical tools that are used to make a lot of these visual effects stuff, and the visual effects staff that actually works on those tools and standard industrial or industry tools to make visual effects. So Unity is buying the engineers and the products. And they are spinning, or Weta is therefore spinning out a new company called Weta Fx, which will be the visual effects artists and teams. So Weta will still continue as a company that does visual effects. They will probably have to license the products that they already developed from the new Weta Digital owned by Unity. Or maybe there's a deal somewhere where they get access to it. Enzo, PvP, welcome to the show. They're on YouTube. There may be some sort of deal where they get access to all of that because of the, whatever was in their deal and contract. Don't know. What I do know is that, so as it turns out, there are three now. There were two companies. There was Weta Digital, which included the FX and the engineering team. And there was Weta Workshop, and Weta Workshop is the physical prop making company, the physical effects company. So that sword was made by Weta Workshop. The clothes in this, the props in this, all were made by Weta Workshop. They did a wonderful tour that hit the Museum of Science years and years ago, where if you were at all a movie Lord of the Rings or Hobbit, well, I think it was all Lord of the Rings stuff at that time, they had the costumes, the swords, I think it was like 4 or 5 foot tall Orthanc. Amazing. That company will stay, because it was always a separate company, as it turns out. So Weta Workshop will stay as a separate entity. Mr. Krakowian, welcome to the show. Hey, back at you. And so the reason apparently Unity wants this is they want the engineers and the tools, I'm guessing, to get into the actual the actual Hollywood or movie visual effects game, because Unity, while it's the most popular game development engine in the world, it's because it's mostly used for mobile games. and more lightweight console type games. So the idea that any of this really crazy stuff, like, the software that literally creates all of the giant armies as little individuals that all move around via AI, is going to be used in a Unity-based game just doesn't make any sense. Unless Unity is somehow about to come up with some, like, really super AAA version of its own Unity engine. Or maybe they just want to license that sort of stuff to the developers who are going to be using Unreal 5 and, make these super realistic giant armies or cityscapes or what have you. So, anyway, it still has to be approved, of course, by various regulatory agencies, mostly in New Zealand. And we'll see where they take this technology. But big deal. Peter Jackson just made a boatload of money, and his partners. I mean, he's not the only one who owns any of the Weta companies. But he's definitely one of the founders of all of them. And so Jackson just, raked in some dough. Not that he probably needed it. We'll stay on top of this to see where it goes. Next bit of news. It's a casting news, and it's a very interesting casting news. That is, of course, Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. Gal Gadot has been cast to play the Evil Queen in Disney's upcoming live action, and like actual live action, version of Snow White. So apparently, and I think we covered this. We might have missed this. Rachel Zegler is going to play Snow White. The movie is going to be directed by Mark Webb. It hasn't started production yet, but that's supposed to happen in 2022. I kind of like this idea. I like the idea of Gal Gadot stretching out of what we normally think of her in her comfort zone as, a hero, or, protagonist or whatever. I think she could make a pretty awesome Evil Queen. No way to know for sure. No way to know what the script is going to be like yet. But it is Disney, and Disney has not completely ruined it, I guess is the nicest way to put it, with any of their live action or CG that looks like live action adaptations. Some of them are better than others, but none of them have just straight up sucked. So we'll see where this goes. It's part and parcel, of course, of they are remaking pretty much every animated product they've ever done. This is going to be a musical, and the writers behind La La Land and The Greatest Showman and Dear Evan Hansen is going to be writing songs for the new movie. I do remember that. So we did cover the casting of Rachel Zegler before. So we'll see where this goes. Again, hasn't even started filming yet, so I'm guessing at best you're looking at a 2023 release. Next, continuing on the Sword of Disney train, that is Letitia Wright as Shuri from the original Black Panther movie. The news is the Black Panther Wakanda Forever production will pause right after November and won't start up again until January because they're waiting for Letitia Wright to recover from that injury that happened to her here in Boston. I say here in Boston, I'm in Massachusetts, a few dozen miles north of Boston. A lot of our team is based around Boston. So when I say here in, I don't actually mean I'm right in Boston, but it's what we consider our neck of the woods. This was late August, folks. If she's not coming back to work until January, the implication in my mind is that this was a break of some kind, that there were broken bones. You're looking at basically 5 months worth of healing and bone setting. And according to this article in Deadline, Ryan Coogler, the director of both Black Panther and the sequel Wakanda Forever, has said that they have filmed everything except for Shuri parts. So except for Letitia Wright's parts. So there's nothing else for them to do on set. I'm assuming they're going to continue doing post-production work for some of the scenes they've already filmed, because that would just be silly. And it says this will not delay the opening, which, as you may have recalled from our show a little more than a month ago, where we talked about how Disney had changed the dates for literally everything, Marvel and anything else, that this is still coming out supposedly November 11th, 2022, pushed forward from July 8th, 2022, which is when it was supposed to be. So, yep, there we go. It just occurred to me, that's really close to the amount of time Letitia Wright will have been out by the time January starts up again. I can't imagine they moved everything to accommodate moving Black Panther Wakanda Forever, but it might have been the case. Stranger things have happened. Tease for later on in the show. Anyway. This is the wonderful Daniel Day Kim, one of the hardest working men in show business. The news is that Netflix has cast Daniel Day Kim to play Fire Lord Ozai in the upcoming live-action series Avatar: The Last Airbender. I like this. I like Daniel Day Kim anyway. He's a fantastic actor. I like the look. I think this works really well. We mentioned how they've got, we talked back when they finally named the younger kids, again, a little more than a month ago, which is Zuko is played by Dallas Liu, Aang is played by Gordon Cormier, Katara is played by Keo Antio, and Sokka is played by Ian Owsley. Creeper King, welcome to the show. There on the YouTubes. So Kim is obviously Asian American. Dallas Liu and Gordon Cormier are both of Asian descent. And Keo Antio and Ian Owsley are both of indigenous North American background. So they're continuing to nail the casting, and sticking to their guns and their promise on casting appropriate characters for the way they were portrayed in the anime. So, good on you, Netflix. Good get, and good to keep sticking with, the right kind of casting. Next up, this is just kind of at the edge of nerdy. It's more only because of the topic. That is the first promotional image put out for the new movie Quasi, being made by the guys at Broken Lizard. So Super Troopers, Beer Fest, all that insanity. The reason it's on here is that this is a parody of The Hunchback of Notre Dame. And I gotta say, I like the Super Troopers stuff, or I like Broken Lizard stuff up to a point. I think Beer Fest was hilarious. Super Troopers themselves, so. This idea, I cannot wait to see what they do with the Hunchback. Adrian Pilecki is going to be starring in it. They don't name the role. I've got to assume it's Esmeralda. But yeah, this could be a lot of fun. No information beyond that about when it's going to happen. It is a film, and it will stream exclusively to Disney's direct-to-consumer platforms as a Hulu original in the U.S. Because it's Broken Lizard, and you can pretty much guarantee that they are not going to be appropriate for Disney+. Or they're toning it down, which I kind of can't imagine, although Disney money can convince people to make an awful lot of compromises. But it's Broken Lizard. I can't imagine them making any compromises. So, but we don't know when. Again, it will be on Hulu whenever it happens. So this is obviously a screenshot from the Eternals, which I have not yet seen. So, no spoilers in the comments, please. The news here is the movie itself has been banned in theaters in 3 Gulf nations, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Qatar. And the reason apparently is because all 3 of those nations have very strict laws banning not only homosexuality, but homosexual portrayed content. And apparently, we've known this for a long time. Phaistos, played by Brian Tyree Henry, is an openly gay character. And apparently, I didn't know this, and really super minor spoiler for something that happens in the middle of the movie that has nothing whatsoever to do with the movie. I only know about it because it's in this article. If you really, really, really don't want to hear this, turn your sound off, and I will, do a queen wave when I'm done. But apparently, Phaistos has a husband named Ben, played by a character from, or an actor from Dubai, Haz Sleeman, and they have a kiss in the middle of the movie. And that would seem to be why the movie has been pulled from these 3 countries, because of their strict anti-homosexual laws. So, I've said this in so many ways about Saudi Arabia. Screw you, Saudi Arabia. I mean, God, there's nothing good, literally nothing good coming out of you whatsoever. Your biggest export is Wahhabi radicalized Islam. Almost every single member of the 9/11 attackers were from Saudi Arabia and members of the Wahhabi religious minority cult or sect, depending on how you want to describe it, as is, of course, Osama bin Laden. And it's the semi-official religious sector of Islam for the ruling Saud family. So, yeah. And, they murder journalists and chop them up. So, just another reason why it's a little too big for it all to just dump into the Gulf, because it would fill up the Gulf. But, it could go away and I'd be happy. Anyway, that's just, there's nothing that's going to be done about that. Nobody's going to, push back against it. It's just a bit of news about how, there are still parts of the world where people are idiots. And some of those parts of the world, unfortunately, spent an awful lot of money on American defense products, so we treat them nicely. Moving on, so I don't start really ranting. This is an image from the box cover art of the game, Rogue Squadron. The news is about the movie Rogue Squadron, and apparently it's gotten delayed. Was supposed to have gone into production next year, and it's supposed to be pre-production by the end of this year, and apparently they have not made a commitment as to when it's going to start up again. It's been taken off the production schedule. Whether this is because Patty Jenkins has confirmed that she will be doing Wonder Woman 3, and that is taking priority in her contract structure or what have you, no idea. But it may not happen, folks. It looks like, at best, if we get a Rogue Squadron, it's going to be after we get Wonder Woman 3. So, kick that can way down the road or kicked it right into the trash. I'm hoping it's the former, not the latter. Because non-Skywalker saga Star Wars stuff so far is absolutely my favorite. Notwithstanding the fact that the original started all of this and therefore it's amazing. Come on. The Mandalorian is just fantastic. Oh gosh, what's the name of it? Rogue One, absolutely wonderful. Possibly the best movie in the Star Wars canon, in my mind. But hopefully they'll get to make this at some point. This literally dropped just an hour and a half ago. That is your Monkey D. Luffy right there. Inaki Godoy mainly known, as far as I can tell, from Spanish language television and movies. But the news is Netflix announced the central cast for their upcoming One Piece live action adaptation. Again, like we've talked about previously, this will be a series like the Avatar: The Last Airbender was a series. So you've got this Iñaki Godoy, Emily Rudd as Nami, Jacob Romero Gibson as Usopp, and Taz Skylar as Sanji. And the only one that I might have actually heard about if I'd seen any of the movies, the many, many movies this person's done, Makanyu as Zoro. Apparently, Makanyu, Japanese-American, born in Los Angeles, and then became insanely popular in Japan. A lot of it in anime adaptations. His most recent, just this year, was the latest Rurouni Kenshin movie. So, they've got somebody who has huge name recognition, at least within that sphere. And then a lot of other people that, I don't know that anybody's really ever heard of, or I certainly haven't. This also says, although it's not a confirmation, that the rumor is that there are 10 episodes in the first season. And if you go to, I went to the IMDb listings of every one of these people who are already labeled, and they already have the episode titles in IMDb. So I guess it's pretty close to a confirmed thing that it will be 10 episodes. But still in production, and so Oda-san actually put out an announcement or a tweet to go along with this, but also let's see, how's the way you phrase it? As to when it might happen, it'll take a bit more time to get this show done. So, as is typical in Netflix, until they make the announcement, who knows? All right, our next to last story, that is, of course, Taika Waititi, the brilliant Taika Waititi, and he is holding in his hand the Incal. The news is that the writer of the best-selling graphic novel in the world of all time, The Incal, Alejandro Jodorowsky, and the publishing company Humanoids Inc. Has tapped Waititi to make an adaptation, a movie adaptation apparently, of The Incal. What is The Incal? So that's an image. It is a 1980, the original book of the original publication of the comic that became the graphic novel, The Incal. Started in 1980 and ran through 1988. The Incal is the story of John DeFool, a private investigator in a very far future, living on a very insignificant planet, although, as you can see, still very highly developed. Out in the corner of the galaxy, where he winds up getting involved in a search by an awful lot of people for this thing called the Light Incal, which is apparently one of the most powerful transformational things in the universe. Unfortunately, there's also a thing called the Dark Incal, and there are people who are after the Light Incal who work for the Dark Incal or worship it, or so it's weird. As Greg, so when I was going through this and I was looking at the the Wikipedia entry for the Incal, I really remember reading this, or remember I think I read it, and then I'm reading all of the description of it, and it's like, well, okay, parts of this sound really familiar, but a lot of it doesn't. So I think I read the first few pages, not even the first book, but like, say, the first chapter of the first book, was published initially in the French, the original version of Heavy Metal magazine, and it was, I'm sure, one of the ones that was then published in the English version when I started reading Heavy Metal. So that's why this all looks so familiar. The art is done by Mobius, or Jean Giraud. And, it obviously is, it's very Mobius looking. So maybe I just get that confused with other Mobius works that are, far future, but I'm positive I've read this. At least that first part of it. Which means that I missed all of the insanity. This book goes religious, philosophical, mind trippy, weird by the time it's done. I know I've read it because I remember his Concrete Seagull. Anyway, so it's a really wild. It's kind of like Saga in just how completely out there space opera it is, but then way more philosophical, metaphysical, spiritual weirdness, which is typical of Jodorowsky's stuff. I've never seen any of his movies. I wish I could have seen Dune if he ever made it. But what I've seen of his movies, yeah, there aren't enough mushrooms on the planet to qualify what is going on inside his head. But it's a fascinating piece of work. Again, it is clearly the inspiration for The Fifth Element, along with the Airtight Garage. And so much so that the producers of Humanoids Inc. sued Luc Besson, and lost, as it turns out, in French court for plagiarism. It's a seminal work of graphic novel space opera stuff. And it's probably harder to adapt, even if it is a graphic novel already, so they're sort of storyboarded. It's probably harder to adapt than Dune, because it's weirder. At least the weird sort of metaphysical religious stuff happens as either conversations in people's heads or between people in Dune. Here it happens, like, on the page. So it'll be really interesting to see. Now, granted, it's Taika Waititi, and if there's anybody that could probably pull this off, he's it. Or Edgar Wright. But Jodorowsky apparently picked Taika Waititi personally. So I'm really looking forward to this. Again, just announced. Absolutely no idea of when they might try to get this into a theater. But I guarantee that unless financing deals for this completely fall through, I'm really looking forward to this in probably 2024 or 2025. If you have not seen anything, if you don't know anything about the Incal, go look it up. It's really fascinating. Amazing work. Even if you don't want to buy and read the graphic novels themselves. And so the Incal came out, and then there was a prequel called Before the Incal. There was a single shot sequel after the Incal, and then a longer graphic novel ultimately, when all the comics were collected, called The Final Incal. And they're all set, and Jodorowsky apparently has a overall combined universe that all this stuff is set in, so his further series, like the Meta Barons and so on, are all part of this universe. So check it out, folks. I am really, really excited about this. Another thing that I got pretty excited about, and I'm already pretty excited for this, the latest teaser for Stranger Things Season 4 dropped. It is what they call the Spring Break teaser, and it's a wonderful view of mostly Eleven in her new school in California, and there's some song about California that's playing in the background that's done in a very minor key, and she's talking about how and this is a letter to Mike that she's writing. She's talking about how things are going really great, and if it might not be easy to see, but right there on her strongly lit left cheek is a spitball. So things are not going really great. But she's telling Mike things are going really great, but she can't wait to see him in spring break. And so apparently that's the mechanism by which they get the cast all together, is that the ones that have moved to California are coming back for spring break. And then it devolves into, once she says she's really looking forward to it, it shows some of the stuff that's going to happen when they're back in Hawkins. And it's, the usual Stranger Things, insanity, government agencies, adults being horrible, blah, blah, blah. But it looks really good. As much as I hated Millie Bobby Brown in Godzilla vs. Kong, I hated the character, and I didn't think she did a great job acting. Luminous, hello. Do we know what year season 4 is set in? I've been avoiding any trailers. Let me see if it mentions it specifically in here. I think it actually does in this teaser. It doesn't say in here as far as I can tell. I'd have to look into that. So I can't say for sure off the top of my head. So I didn't care for her. I didn't care for her character, but I also didn't care for the way she acted that character. Here she is, right back into Elle, but a clearly more socialized, drifting towards normal teenage child Elle. And that's really cool to see. This is a role she excels in. And obviously she does fantastic work. I can't think of the character Holmes, Sherlock's sister, that, Netflix stuff. But, sometimes she misses, and every actor has that. So we also found out, by the way, this will debut in the summer. So this is going to drop summer of 2022. Doesn't say, of course, exactly when. They still haven't, it's Netflix. They're not going to give that out yet. But at least we've got that. That we know it'll happen sometime in the summer of 2022. My guess is they're not going to tie it into July 4th because it's not related to that holiday. So, we'll see. But that's it, folks. That is the show. That's our last topic. As we usually do, we're going to end this with a request that you go visit us at Patreon, patreon.com/nerdcaliber, to at least check out what we do there. 3 tiers. The lowest one is $2. We're basically there to offer a way for you to help us get to more cons, get more content for the YouTube channel, for the Twitches, for the Facebooks, and all the other fun stuff. So patreon.com/nerdcaliber. Go check it out if you could, please. We will be doing our full fat spoiler chat on Thursday. What We Do in the Shadows season 3. Lumina says Google claims season 4 is set in 1986. That would make sense because I get the impression that it's not more than a year after the end of season 3. Possibly half a year. So What We Do in the Shadows, full fat spoiler chat. If you've seen season 3, or if you don't mind spoilers, check it out. If you haven't and you hate spoilers, go watch it and check it out after we air it, because it'll be up here on YouTube and Twitch and everything else. The Anime Octane next Monday. Right now, I'm pretty sure we're going to be doing Violet Evergarden the movie. It just dropped back in September to the U.S. audiences, although it was available in April, I believe, in Japan. Violet Evergarden the movie, again, if you haven't seen it, it's actually longer than any of the previous ones. It's like 2 hours and 15 minutes. But I suggest you go watch it. It's wonderful, if you're a fan of that kind of anime. And that's pretty much it. And then, of course, Nerd Week Live next week. So we will see you folks at an upcoming show, upcoming live show. Stay safe out there, folks. Please remember that, fewer people are going to be getting outside. It's going to be cold season, which means people are going to be inside more and breathing on each other. And, just please, if you haven't been vaccinated, just go do it. Wear that mask indoors, particularly if you're in a place where that's a mandate like Boston. And, be safe. We'll see you in an upcoming show.